Free college football picks, week 12, part 6. I'm Tony here with our college football pick show here for Saturday's action. We have, 10 games here as we complete all 6 parts here for week 12. So we got 63 games in for you. Before we get underway, just a couple things. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Free college football picks are updated all season long. Free picks every day from all the major sports. We also have NFL, NBA, college basketball, and NHL and more. It's a good time to subscribe. And also, if you would, support our channel. Give us that thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. Then visit Tony's. We're a multi-capper site showcasing top cappers in our industry. Click the links to the hot cappers. Get signed up to some of our long-term passes. See some of our really hot cappers up there like Ramon, who's been on fire, Paul as well, and Nick. Sign up and get signed up to some of our long-term passes. You'll find that we have our premium picks in the center of the page. Our best bets are up here as well. Each capper can release one best bet per sport per day, as well as our $15 premium pick. Each capper can designate one pick from their card as a $15 premium pick. Just to introduce their service to new and existing customers. Also, 3-packs are really good value. And of course, you can check out our pick ticker there. Buying picks individually a la carte. We can see we also have late steam. These are picks that cappers release between 10 minutes and 2 hours before game time. And for long-term customers, those are emailed to their inbox. So check those out if you would. And our promo code, you can save 20% off all premium pick packages. When you use that promo code TonyT at checkout, you can access our page by clicking the link in the description, then the All Cappers tab to get signed up. Also love to hear from you guys, so post your picks in the comments below. We are looking for cappers, so you can apply at TonySpicks.com down at our footer section. And don't forget about our podcast. Every pick in podcast form, search Tony's Picks on all major platforms. Let's get this one started. New Mexico State and Missouri college football pick. This one here goes off on Saturday. New Mexico State is 4-5 with their 51-14 home win to FCS Lamar. They posted 433 yards. They've won 4 of 5 with their other wins coming to UMass, New Mexico, and Hawaii. Diego Pavia is completing 48% of his passes for 6.1 yards per attempt. Missouri fell to 4-5 with their 66-24 road defeat at Tennessee. Tigers gained 389 yards with 172 rushing on 37 carries. On defense, they surrendered over 6 yards per run to the Volunteers with 460 passing on 38 attempts. Brady Cook completed 59% of his passes for 6.8 yards per attempt. He threw for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns. This season, Cook a 65% completion rate with 7.2 yards per attempt. Aggies defense on the road surrendered 411 yards, 5.2 yards per rush, 8 yards per pass attempt. New Mexico State struggled to score at Wisconsin and Minnesota. The play here will be New Mexico State and Missouri under 46.5. USC versus UCLA college football pick Saturday. USC improved to 9-1 with their 55-17 home win to Colorado. Trojans gained 531 yards, 185 rushing on 41 carries. Defensively, the Trojans allowed nearly 4 yards per rush to the Buffs with 124 passing on 21 attempts. Caleb Williams completed 54% of his passes, 10.3 yards per attempt. He threw for 268 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. On the year, Williams a 64% completion rate with 8.8 yards per attempt. UCLA fell to 8-2 after their 34-28 home defeat to Arizona. Bruins produced 465 yards, 220 rushing on 37 carries. Defensively, the Bruins allowed about 3.5 yards per rush to the Wildcats with 312 passing yards on 29 attempts. Dorian Thompson-Robinson completed 67% of his passes in the loss with a season-low 6.3 yards per attempt. He threw for 245 yards and a touchdown. He ran for only 2.2 yards per carry with a touchdown and a fumble. This year, Dorian Robinson, a 71% completion rate, 8.2 yards per attempt. Dorian Thompson-Robinson running ability a key for the Bruins here. Past 3 games, their defense holding teams at 3.8 yards per rush attempt. In this period, Trojans allowing 303 passing yards and 8.1 yards per pass attempt. The play here will be on UCLA plus 2.5. Syracuse versus Wake Forest college football pick Saturday. Syracuse 6-4 with their 38-3 home defeat to Florida State. The Orange gained 160 yards, 95 rushing on 31 carries. Defensively, they allowed over 5.5 yards per rush to the Seminoles with 190 passing on 31 attempts. Carlos Del Rio Wilson may get the start with that injury to Garrett Schrader. On the season, he has completed 43% of his passes, 6.7 yards per attempt. Wake Forest fell to 6-4 With their 36-34 home defeat to North Carolina, Demon Deacons gained 490 yards, 170 rushing on 41 carries. Defensively, they allowed 4 yards per rush with 448 passing yards on 49 carries. Sam Hartman completed 58% of his passes with 10.3 yards per attempt. He passed for 320 yards and 4 touchdowns and an interception. Second game back for the Orange starting quarterback here. Schrader looks like he could be giving it a go here. He is completing 65% of his passes for 8.2 yards per pass attempt this season. Play here will be Syracuse at +10. UAB versus LSU college football pick. This one goes off here on Saturday. UAB improved to 5-5 with their 41-21 home win to North Texas. Blazers posted 505 yards, 271 rushing on 51 carries. Defensively, UAB held the Mean Green just over 3 yards per rush with 159 passing on 32 attempts. Dylan Hopkins completed 65% of his passes in the win, 10.2 yards per attempt. On the year, Hopkins a 67% completion rate, about 10 yards per attempt. The LSU enters played 8-2 after their 13-10 road win at Arkansas. Tigers gained 284 yards, 198 rushing on 51 carries. Defensively, LSU held the Razorbacks to under 3 yards per rush with 116 passing on 22 attempts. Jane Daniels completed 53% of his passes, 5.7 yards per attempt. He threw for just 86 yards and an interception. Season to date, Daniels a 69% completion rate, 7.3 yards per attempt. Tigers, a 2-loss team, will still have to earn those style points. Play here will be LSU -15. Colorado versus Washington, college football pick. This one here is on Saturday. Colorado fell to 1-9 with their 55-17 road defeat to USC. Buffaloes gained 259 yards with 135 rushing on 35 carries. Defensively, they allowed 4.5 yards per rush to the Trojans with 346 passing yards on 33 attempts. JT Shrout completed 52% of his passes, 5.9 yards per attempt. He threw for 124 yards and an interception. This season, Shrout a 45% completion rate, 5.9 yards per attempt. Washington sits at 8-2 after a 37-34 road win at Oregon. Huskies posted 522 yards, 114 rushing on 22 carries. Defensively, the Huskies allowed over 6 yards per attempt on the ground with 280 passing on 28 attempts. Michael Penix completed a season-high 74%, 11.7 yards per pass. He threw for a season-high 408 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. This season, Penix a 67% completion rate, 8.5 yards per attempt. Back-to-back road games for the Buffs. On the road, they are allowing 532 yards. And at home, the Huskies averaging 519 yards. Play here will be Washington -30.5. Colorado State and Air Force college football pick Saturday. Colorado State fell to 2-8 with their 14-13 home defeat to Wyoming. Rams put up 372 yards, 121 rushing on 33 carries. Defensively, they allowed 3.5 yards per rush with 94 passing on 15 attempts. Clay Millen completed 69% of his passes with 9.7 yards per attempt. He threw for 251 yards and an interception. On the season, Millen a 70% completion rate with 8.2 yards per attempt. Air Force 7-3 following their 35-3 home win to New Mexico. Falcons posted 470 yards, 428 rushing on 70 carries. Defensively, they limited the Lobos with less than 2 yards per rush and 128 passing yards on 21 attempts. Zeke Daniels, 2 of 2 for 42 yards and a touchdown. He rushed for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns with his 9 carries. He's averaging 5.4 yards per carry on the ground this season, and he's passing for 7.2 yards. He's passing 7.2 times per game or 10 yards per attempt. Past 3 games, Rams allowing 368 yards, 4.1 yards per rush. So Millen has been accurate as well. The play will be Colorado State +22. San Jose State versus Utah State college football pick Saturday. San Jose State fell to 6-3 with their 43-27 road defeat at San Diego State. Spartans a season low 223 yards, 28 rushing on 21 carries. Defensively, they allowed over 3 yards per rush with 268 passing yards on 23 attempts. Chevan Cordeiro completed 57% of his passes with 5.9 yards per attempt. He threw for 195 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. This season, Cordeiro a 60% completion rate with 7.4 yards per attempt. Utah State improved to 5-5 with their 41-34 road win at Hawaii. Aggies posted 374 yards, 136 rushing on 44 carries. Defensively, they did allow 7 yards per run with 306 passing yards on 47 attempts. Cooper Legis has completed 67% of his passes, 9.9 yards per attempt. He threw for 238 yards and 3 touchdowns. On the air, Legis a 61% completion rate with 6.8 yards per attempt. Past 3 games, both offenses struggling. The Spartans rushing for 1.9 yards per rush, Aggies at 3. Utah State defense has been strong against the pass. Spartans in this period allowing 274 yards passing for 9.6 yards per attempt. The play here will be Utah State minus the 1. Fresno State versus Nevada college football pick Saturday. Fresno State improved to 6-4 with their 37-30 road win at UNLV. Bulldogs gained 381 yards, 68 of it rushing on 26 carries. Defensively, they allowed 5.5 yards per rush to the Rebels with 172 passing yards on 33 attempts. Jake Kaner completed 82% of his passes, 9.2 yards per attempt. He threw for 313 yards, 3 touchdowns. On the year, Hainer a 75% completion rate with 8.8 yards per attempt. Nevada fell to 2-8 with their 41-3 home defeat to Boise State. Wolfpack put up 250 yards, 127 rushing on 38 carries. On defense, they surrendered over 5.5 yards per run with 261 passing yards on 27 attempts. Oklahoma State transfer Shane Illingworth completed 43% of his passes with 4.1 yards per attempt. He had 123 yards passing. Now this season, Illingworth a 58% completion rate, 5.2 yards per attempt. Past 3 games, Wolfpack averaging 256 yards. On the road, the Bulldogs averaging only 346 yards. The play here will be Fresno State and Nevada under 54. Utah versus Oregon college football pick Saturday. Utah improved to 8-2 with their 42-7 home win to Stanford. Utes gained 514 yards, 279 rushing on 36 carries. On defense, the Utes held the Cardinals just over 1 yard per rush with 155 passing yards on 25 attempts. Cameron Reeson completed 60% of his passes with 6.6 yards per attempt. He passed for 219 yards in the win, 3 touchdowns and an interception. On the air, Reeson a 66% completion rate, 8.2 yards per attempt. Now, Oregon, they fell to 8-2 after a 37-34 home loss to Washington. Ducks posted 592 yards, 312 rushing on 51 carries. On defense, they surrendered 5 yards per rush with 408 passing yards on 35 attempts. Bo Nix completed 68% of his passes, 10 yards per attempt. He passed for 279 yards and 2 touchdowns. This year, Nix, career highs here. 73% completion rate, 9.2 yards per attempt. Bo Nix' health is a concern. He has practiced this week. Nix took a helmet to the thigh in the loss last week. Utes struggled against a mobile quarterback in their loss at UCLA, allowing 502 yards. At home, Oregon is moving the football for 539 yards. Utes on the road allowing 371 yards, 8.3 yards per pass attempt. The play will be Oregon at plus 2.5. UNLV versus Hawaii college football pick Saturday. UNLV fell to 4-6 with their 37-30 home defeat to Fresno State. Rebels gained 391 yards, 219 rushing on 39 carries. Defensively, they surrendered under 3 yards per rush with 313 passing yards on 34 attempts. Doug Brumfield completed 54% of his passes with 5.2 yards per attempt. He passed for 172 yards. Now this season, Brumfield a 65% completion rate, 7.5 yards per attempt. Hawaii sits at 2-9 after their 41-34 home defeat to Utah State. Warriors posted a season high in this one. It was a pretty good performance here. 514 yards, 235 rushing on 34 carries. Defensively, they allowed over 3 yards per run to the Aggies with 238 passing on 24 attempts. Braden Shager completed 50% of his passes, 6.7 yards per attempt. He passed for 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Now on the year, Shager is a 55% completion rate, 5.8 yards per attempt. Rebels have lost 5 straight on the road, UNLV averaging only 293 yards a game. Hawaii at home averaging 365 yards, 4.7 yards per rush. They are showing improvement as the season wore on. The play here will be Hawaii at plus the 11. That was our college football pick show here for Saturday. Was part 6. We had all 63 done for you, so check our archives for all the picks from college football. We'll have NBA and college basketball a little later as well. And, of course, our live show, Morning Steam, at Saturday at 9 a.m. each time. Check that one out. this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. The show runs Saturday through Thursdays. I'm Tony T, back later with more picks.